Following a string of similar attacks last year, another historically black church in Mississippi was set on fire. That's the Hopewell Baptist Church. It was early today, and in addition to being set on fire, it also had "Vote Trump" spray painted on it in big letters. So there
it could be a Democrat. It could be a liberal. You don't know.
Could be
you
a
don't
liberal.
know.
Could be Black Lives Matter. Perhaps not. So you see there the fire damage. You also see the spray paint. I think we have a close-up as well in case maybe you don't have your contacts in. Yes, vote Trump. A very clear political message there. The main sanctuary of the church sustained heavy fire and smoke damage, as did the pastor's study and kitchen. There is definitely something particularly perverse about the sanctuary of a church being most damaged during this apparently politically motivated terrorist attack on a historically black church, a church that's been operating for 111 years, according to my research. There were no reports of injuries, thankfully, and no one had been in the building since about 1 p.m. Tuesday. The mayor of Greenville, where the church was burned, a city that is apparently 78% African American, more so than the surrounding area, said this is being investigated as a hate crime. This is a direct assault on people's right to freely worship. We're going to investigate the matter with all deliberate speed and will not rest until the perpetrator is arrested and prosecuted. And the police chief in Greenville said this: "It tries to push your beliefs on someone else," referring to the spray paint. "And this is a church, a predominantly black church, and no one has a right to try and pressure someone into the way they want to decide to vote in this election." Some of the members of the congregation were, people reached out to them, reporters, that said not only were they worried for the future of the church, which it's not sure at this point can actually be repaired, it might have to be replaced, they also said that they feel that this is also personal terrorism against them, an attempt to intimidate them personally as African Americans in that area.
Okay, if you're not aware of the history of terrorism in this country, racists have been terrorizing black people in this country for a long time. And I'm not just talking about slavery. I'm talking about Birmingham used to have a nickname during the Civil Rights era. It was called Bombingham because of how many times it was black homes and churches would be firebombed. And now there's a famous story of the four poor little children who died in a church once. But bombing black churches is an old racist terrorist tradition here in America. Mm-hmm. And so did you know that after the shootings in South Carolina, where a white supremacist walked in and shot and killed 9 African Americans, 7 other black churches were burned down after that?
I read up to 11.
So now, how come that didn't get nonstop coverage? Now imagine...
We covered it.
Yes. Now imagine if you had a Muslim who went in and murdered white Christians in some place like South Carolina and said, "I did," and the guy had a manifesto. The shooter in South Carolina that killed all those African Americans had a manifesto, did it for political and ideological reasons, and he wanted to start a race war. It partly inspired others, perhaps, to start those other fires also in black churches. Okay. Imagine a Muslim goes in, has a manifesto. "I did this for Islam and Allah, and I'd like to murder white people to start a war between Islam and Christianity." He boom, 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 shoots all those people. And then Muslims start burning churches all across the country. Do you think we'd ever hear the end of it? No. But it's interesting. The media has decided, I don't want to cover that. I don't want to create hysteria around that. I want to create hysteria around Islam. I want to create hysteria around undocumented immigrants, but I don't want to create hysteria. Hey, Leo, let's take it easy now. Church burnings, what's the big deal? You know, maybe they could have burned people alive in a church. What's the big deal? They shot and murdered 9 people inside a church in South Carolina. At least they covered that. Okay. Yeah. Now, this black church gets burned down again. Are we calling them terrorists? Are we covering it nonstop? No, this is the last you'll ever hear of this. So mainstream media, I don't know how much they covered it today, but they're done with it. Never get any coverage tomorrow, and we'll all go on with our lives. Is there a pattern there? Who cares? We're not going to look into it. We're the media. Yeah. No, we hype up dangers, so-called dangers. By the way, do you know that you're 7 times more likely to be killed by a right-wing extremist in America than by a Muslim extremist? So does that get 7 times the coverage? No.
I'm not sure it gets 1/7 the coverage.
That's exactly right. So ask yourself, is it the danger that they're covering, or is the coverage dictated by certain preconceptions, stereotypes, and other messages that they want to push?
Yeah. Now, there is a little bit of silver lining of good news in that we were talking earlier today about when the the Republican office was firebombed. The Democratic Party raised money to help rebuild it, and JR jokingly wondered if Trump supporters would, because this apparently was done by a Trump supporter, would raise money to fix it because of their apparent implication there. Probably isn't going to happen. But thankfully, a crowdfunding source for the church wanted to raise $10,000, if you could bring up this graphic. As of several hours ago, it had already passed $33,000. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough to repair the church, but it is at least something. It is continuing, so you can take part in that if you would like as well. That's one way that you can signal solidarity with the people who.
When I said that, it continued to go to the whole thing, because then when I read the articles about the North Carolina office, the Trump office, there was, I forget what exactly happened. If it was bricks or bombs, something thrown through the window was destroyed, it was vandalized, all that stuff. And it was raised, and the articles around it said, Democrats show how I guess not holier than thou wasn't used, but their character when they raised money to get this office back in operation and this political office going, and even though it's supporting Trump, who's directly against their own candidate. And I was like, sure, I mean, is that the point? To show how great you are? Because it doesn't do anything. Or if the look is to hand out and say, look how great we are. Don't you guys want to come and meet us in the middle? I don't like having conversations with people who don't want anything to do with meeting in the middle or talking about what the real problem is or why we've gotten to this place. So these are gestures just to show how much better you are. You're not better. You're the idiot now. And fine, I'm not against them actually raising money to help them fix this office, but it never happens the other way because they actually don't give a shit about this.
I'm still glad they did it, but yeah, you don't expect it to go the other way.
Yeah, I'm not telling them not to. I wouldn't give them a dime.
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's a lot of things that are annoying, horrible, etc. on the internet. At least this is the upside of the internet. And so in the old days, they never would have gotten the word out, and nobody would have ever raised anything, and they'd have to try to somehow rebuild it on their own.
Yeah.
So for all of you who contributed to that, God bless your hearts.
And final point is because of the long history of these churches, and as Cenk pointed out, the long-standing tradition of terrorizing particularly black churches, many of these churches, when you read about the attacks against them in the past year, they talk about, oh, we can rebuild again because we had to rebuild after 30 years ago, after 60 years ago. And many times the church has had to be rebuilt, at least partially, multiple times in the past 100 years because of recurring terrorism against them.
Oh, you know what? The terrorism happened in those churches in our history because they figured that's where black people are coming together and planning to put some kind of coalition of building their lives to make it better in this country that they've been dragged to and been mistreated this entire time. And that would be too scary for us. But now we hear things about black people. When are you going to get together and fix your neighborhoods and stop shooting each other? What do you have to lose? Well, if you get together and start fixing and figuring a way to put everything together without any kind of assistance from our country, you get killed for it. Yeah.